my channel. So today we're going to be taking a look at the Transformers Legacy Wave 3 Deluxe Class Skullgrin. Let's start off by taking a look at the packaging, and then we will get into the review. So of course up front we have the Legacy logo, Transformers on the side. We have a really cool artwork shot of Skullgrin in his tank mode, firing with those huge cannons. A nice open window displaying the figure in the packaging. On the side, two really cool artwork shots. One close-up of Skullgrin's really cool skull face. Another really cool artwork shot with his two swords looking really awesome. On the back, he transforms in 20 steps. Two product shots, one of the tank and one of the robot, with all of his accessories. And if you scan that barcode right there, it shows the stats of the character. And of course, on the final side, we have the Decepticon Legacy artwork, and that is pretty much it for the packaging. So let's now get into the review. Here we have Skullgrin in his robot mode. Let's take a look at the details, starting at the very top with that head sculpt looking absolutely amazing. Love the horns sticking out, the really nice piercing reddish pink eyes, the giant tusk sections, the teeth, the nose. I think they did such an amazing job with this head sculpt. I cannot gush over enough. I do want you guys to be aware of something. There is some areas on this figure that are more done and more of a rubbery, pliable plastic, like the horns on the face, the ears, and these spike sections on the shoulder are more of a rubber kind of pliable plastic. Personally, that does not bother me, but of course it could bother other people. Again, just in my opinion, it doesn't bother me, but for the entire rest of the face, that is done in solid plastic. But again, amazing looking head sculpt. Let's now get down to the arm. Again, that horn looking very cool, sticking out of that shoulder. Some really nice white and maroon there. And of course, for the forearm, mostly done in gray, but there's a really cool design they put on the knuckles. This whole spike section. So this guy is definitely armed to the teeth. Let's get down to the chest. Really small Decepticon symbol done in purple, with mostly some gray and maroon for the other areas. But I really do like this nice venting and kind of paneling detailing there. Getting down to the crotch and waist, really cool skull design at the crotch. You could probably say this is maybe like a belt buckle or like a utility belt, which is pretty cool, where he can store all of his weapons and ammo. There's some more spikes on the side of his legs, which will move, of course, whenever you want to pose this guy around. Same design for the other arm for the legs. Overall, pretty simple. Some nice spikes at the knees. You could probably say these are like armor pieces, mostly done in that gray with some maroon for the feet. But a really cool design they have on the back of the legs is actually the treads from the tank. I actually kind of wish these were more towards the front leg or the side here so you could see them better, but you can barely see them from the front. But this looks super cool. Really nice chain around the entire part, done in gunmetal gray with lots of nuts and bolt design. And everything else actually looks super cool. He actually does have a tail, which you can maneuver and post to your own desire, but everything else not much kibble, a few hollow areas on the back of the arms, but that really doesn't bother me at all. So design-wise, I have to say, they did an amazing job. This is actually one of my more anticipated figures. There were several I wanted: Victor Saber, Dragon Megatron, Armada Starscream, and this one, he definitely meets my expectations. So let's now get down to, of course, articulations. The head can look up and down, of course, move side to side. The horns, which I guess you can count as articulation, they can actually move in, but that's really due to transformation. The ears as well can move down if you want to, just to have more of a dynamic pose. The arm can move that far out and all the way around. There is a bicep rotation, a way past 90 elbow bend. Unfortunately, no wrist rotation, but you can actually angle the hand for more of a dynamic pose whenever he is holding his accessories. As for the waist, just make sure this tail is out of the way so you do not bump anything. The full waist rotation, the leg can kick that far forward on a very tight joint there. It can kick that far back. And of course, out to the side is slightly limited because this whole piece here kind of starts to hit some pieces inside the waist, so you can barely kick it out, which is unfortunate. Doesn't bother me that much because I think everything else is really good articulation. There's also a swivel and a knee bend like that. And of course, an ankle pivot to a very good degree. And that's pretty much it for articulation. I would say pretty standard for Deluxe. The only thing that's really limited is this kick out to the side, but that's just because that panel is there. So just be aware whenever you're posing this around, it's a little bit limited there. You don't want to crack anything or break any of those panels if you try and force a pose with those legs that can't do that. But everything else looking super cool. Pretty average for Deluxe. Let's now get down to the accessories. So he does come with 4, which I think is awesome for Deluxe. There are 2 identical sets. There's 2 swords and 2 blasters. Let's start with the blasters. So he does come with 2 of these. The really nice gunmetal gray and purple or maroon, looking super cool. He can hold these, but really the standard position is storing them on the back, which we'll get to in just a sec. So I think that looks pretty nice. Blaster piece compatible, but the main storage, in my opinion, Also, to be aware, of course, there is some active ports on the forearms, actually on the shoulder and under the arm if you want to, which is pretty cool. But I typically will store them back here, and the instructions does the same, so you can actually store this. There is a port and a peg, and you can just plug that right into place like that. And again, the tail you can kind of position however you wish. As for the other side, you can get that second blaster, store that there as well, and I think that looks pretty cool from a front view. I do have a complaint about this back section, so for some reason it is removable. I'm not entirely sure why. I kind of wish this was just a solid piece. That doesn't really bother me. What does bother me is, unfortunately, so this section does swivel, because this is actually the turret section for the tank, so that makes sense. But I think for the robot mode, they should have put some like locking mechanism so it doesn't always move around, because it's kind of annoying when you're trying to pose this guy and it keeps like moving back and forth. That is just maybe on my copy, maybe it's more tight and secure on someone else's, so it would have been nice if there was more of a locking mechanism. Again, it being removable doesn't bother me. I don't really know why they had that option. It doesn't bother me. I just really would have liked this section to be able to lock in place. As for the last two accessories, which are the swords, these are actually also done in more of a kind of rubber pliable plastic. I'm not really sure why. I was worried that this was going to bother me, but it actually doesn't, because it's a pretty solid rubber. It does hold its place. I was worried it was going to be like a very kind of flappy sword, but it's actually pretty solid, pretty thick plastic and rubber, and really well designed. Really nice gunmetal gray and white for the blade. I also really do like this hilt right in front of the peg or handle, so I think it's a pretty good sword. It can actually also act as a blaster, so if you use the second peg or handle, he can have a blaster as well, which I typically do not do this because he has blasters on his back, so I think he doesn't really need 4 different blasters for him. So I typically will have it in the sword configuration, but you can do this if you want. Also, another way I came up with storing the swords, besides the hand, of course, is actually a pretty cool thing I found. So, as I mentioned before, there is some ports on the underside of the forearm, and there is a peg here. This was not in the instructions, I just saw this myself. Of course, someone else could have found this as well. I've watched several reviews, no one's ever really mentioned it, but you can actually sort of create, if you watch Transformers Prime, I think most people have, RC had some really cool underarm blades, so you can sort of recreate that with Skullgrin here, which I think looks pretty cool, in my opinion. Nice customizable option if you want to do that, but of course the main way to for him to hold the sword is in his hand like this, and I think that actually looks pretty cool. So you can get his second one and have him hold it as well, or again, these can also act as guns. I really don't think he needs to have them as guns, because he already has some guns on his back, so he is definitely well equipped. I think this is a really solid deluxe release, probably one of my favorite of Legacy, and definitely one of my favorite of Legacy Wave 3. I still have Dead End to come, but I don't think he's going to be able to beat this figure, because it just looks so cool in my opinion. Let's now get down to some comparisons. So first up here he is with Crankcase, my recent release. His review should be up on the channel right now, so make sure you go watch that review after this one. They look pretty cool together. And now for another comparison, which is a pretty exciting one. So, of course, Skullgrin is a pretender. He's actually our third pretender of Legacy. Here he is with Iguanus and Bombburst. So, I think they look pretty cool next to each other. And I also have to say, probably the pretenders have been a pretty solid set of releases. Iguanus was probably still my favorite core class figure. Bombburst might be my second, but deluxe-wise, they definitely nailed it with Skullgrin, in my opinion, of course. I think they should definitely continue it up. I know people have complained they really wish the pretenders were just in one line, like all deluxes or all core class figures. My assumption is what they might kind of do is like with the Dinobots and Studio Series. So, of course, they're releasing the Leader Class Dinobots and Studio Series 86 line, but they're going to release the Core Class Dinobots in the Legacy line. So what they might do is make, maybe in a future line, maybe in Studio Series or Legacy, they might actually release a bigger version of Iguanus in a deluxe size, and, of course, the same for Bombburst, and maybe, of course, a similar size for Skullgrin. That is just my theory. They might not do that at all. Personally, I actually kind of like how there's different sizes. I'd actually like maybe if they make another deluxe, because we have 2 core classes and only 1 deluxe right now, but I do think they look very cool next to each other. Of the pretenders so far, which one is your favorite? I have to say Skullgrin, he really kicks butt, but I really do like Iguanus. For such a small figure, he is very well detailed, but they do look very cool next to each other, and I do hope they continue making more pretenders in the future. And now for one final comparison, here he is with Skullgrin. So if you really don't know what pretenders are, they are of course really a shell, and there is a figure stored inside. So if you open up, of course, there's a figure inside. This was really, this was from Power of the Primes, trying to recreate what the original Skullgrin did, or the original Skullgrin Pretender did. And of course, this is kind of a modern interpretation of the Pretender, where there's no figure inside, it is just the shell figure itself. So I'm actually really glad they made a full-size figure, because I had this one for a while, again, from Power of the Primes, so about 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, I think, and for the longest time, I really wanted a full-size Skullgrin. I'm so glad they made a full-size one, because he looks so cool, and they actually do look pretty cool next to each other. And that is pretty much it for comparisons for the robot mode. Let's now get down to transformation into the tank. Let's now get down to transformation into the tank mode. So first up, what you're going to want to do is collapse the horn sections in. You can also flip in the hands like that. You can then get the bicep rotate so this tab and slot is facing forward. Do the same thing on the other arm, of course. Just fold that hand in, make sure it's rotated like that. You can then flip up the tail. I'm actually going to remove this backpack section because sometimes it can get in the way and it could pop off. That's just my personal preference. Of course, you can leave it off if you want. Now what you're going to want to do is move the head up. You can then open up this panel just like that. Open up this panel, and then you're going to flip the head through. So just move that through like that, and then you can get the earpiece and flip this up like this. And you can, of course, there is a slot and slot and a tab and tab that will tab right into place like that. You're going to get this whole slider section, move that forward, make sure there is a click, get the shoulders, and then the arms or forearms will tab together like that. There is also tabs on this piece and slots on the arms themselves, so that will just tab into place like that, and the entire back half is pretty much done, of course, minus the turret section, which we'll put on in just a sec. Then you're going to get this whole hinge here, hinge the waist down, and then just get the leg, move this up like that. And then what you're going to want to do is go back here, bring the entire tread section out like this, and then you can fold in the feet, so there is a tab on the foot and a slot on the inside of the leg. Tab that into place like that, and then there is a slot and tab here, and of course a slot and tab on the back of the leg, and you're going to fold up the leg, and there is a tab here and a slot on the inside of the leg as well. So just fold it up, same on the other side, fold the leg up, and then there is of course a tab and tab, and you'll tab the legs together. And then of course, as I said before, rotate this, tab the tread piece into place like that, same on the other side, tab that in place. As for the last connection, there is a slot on the arm and a tab on the tread piece. Do the same thing on the other side. And as for the last step, of course, the tank cannot be a tank without the whole turret section, so there is a peg and a port, and that will plug right into place like that. And there we have Skullgrin in his tank mode. Let's take a look at So here we have Skullgrin in his tank mode. Let's take a look at the details, starting at the very front, with this really nice gray section with this maroon section at the front, these really cool spikes there, overall looking pretty cool. This entire top section, not too bad. It's actually the chest, of course, nice Decepticon symbol there. The entire tread piece on the side, which I kind of wish maybe there was another area or flap to cover this. That's kind of ugly, in my opinion, a little bit ugly there, but not too bad. Of course, you have the entire turret section or blasters, which you can remove if you want, and also, of course, move up and down. And the really nice gunmetal gray and maroon or purple there, looking not too bad. I think it's a pretty solid tank. No, it's not the best one I've seen. Of course, there's always been better, but I think it's a pretty cool tank. Personally, to me, yes, there is some problems, but I think the rope mode is like so solid. I would say a 9 out of 10, or maybe even a 10 out of 10. So I can easily pass a so-so alt mode. But overall, pretty cool. Love the turrets, the really cool spikes. But again, I think they could have maybe put another panel or another tread piece there. I also do think maybe if they put a panel there, they could put another tread piece on this section. This is actually the side of the leg, because it does look a little bit weird with only 2 treads in the back and none in the front. That is just my opinion. I think it just looks a little bit weird, but overall pretty cool. You can slightly cover some of this up if you store these swords on the side, which I can show right now. So if you do get these swords, there is a peg and of course a slot, and there is a port and a tab, and that's how that tabs into place. You can just plug that in like that. It's just gotta wiggle into place, get that slot in there, and you can sort of cover it up. Not, I would say, the greatest, but it works a little bit. And of course the same on the other side, just plug that into place, store that there, and there we have all the accessories stored in the tank. And I've said this before, sword storage on pretty much any vehicle, a plane, tank, car, is always hard to actually look good. I actually think it looks okay. You can use your imagination, say it's like slicing the tires of Autobots, you know, wrecking some vehicles, crashing them. I think it's a pretty cool backstory to put to it. You can make up your own if you want, but really I'd say my only complaint is have that covered up a little bit more and maybe put another tread design on the side of the leg, because it does look a little bit weird with only 2 treads in the back and none in the front. But I think it's a pretty solid tank. Unfortunately, there is no rolling wheels, so it would have been nice if they put some, but that is a very minor complaint for an overall pretty cool looking tank. Let's now get down to some vehicle comparisons. So here he is with Point Blank. Of course, a review coming soon, or it could already be up on the channel right now. I'm not really sure my schedule for these, because I actually have quite a few reviews to get done, but they do look pretty cool next to each other. Size-wise, quite similar from a side view, as you can see. So if you have Point Blank and you don't have Skullgrin yet and you're wondering the size, I would say in the vehicle mode they are pretty much roughly the exact same length. But overall look pretty cool. I actually really do like Point Blank's car. I just have to mention his car looks so awesome. So yeah, review again coming soon, or could already be up on the channel. And for some other vehicle comparisons, here he is with his Pretender shellmate Iguanus. I have to hold it up because there is no kickstand, unfortunately, and I'm not going to try and balance it, but they do look pretty cool next to each other. Again, they should definitely keep making some, either in the core class or deluxe class sale. I would probably say they should make another deluxe, because they've already made 2 core class Pretenders, so probably need another deluxe, I would say. Not sure. Maybe there is a rumor, I think I've heard, that they're going to get this mold from Skullgrin and do like a heavy retool, redeco, repaint into a Bludgeon, which I would love to see, because Bludgeon is another character I really do love the whole skull mask thing and the really cool swords. He's kind of like a samurai. I'd love to see that. That'd be awesome. And I wouldn't mind them reusing this mold. Of course, there would have to be quite a few changes to the head sculpt and the robot mode, but I think that would really work. Here he is with the other Pretender mate, Bomb Burst, and they do look pretty cool. It'd be nice maybe if they could retool, if they're going to do a Bludgeon, if they could remake the tank quite a bit, not just have it the exact same way, but of course I would say their main focus probably should be their robot mode. But that is pretty much it for comparisons. Let's now get down to final thoughts. Let's now get down to the final thoughts for the Transformers Legacy Wave 3 Deluxe Class Skullgrin. Starting in the tank mode, I think it's just okay. I actually really do like the whole turret section with the gunmetal gray and maroon. That looks pretty cool. The entire back tread piece with a really nice sculpted in sheen and gunmetal gray. That looks pretty cool too. And the sword storage is just okay. Like I always say, it's always really hard to store the swords in pretty much any mode and actually look good. You can probably add some cool backstory, like they're slicing the tires of Autobots or running them into them and damaging them. That's a pretty cool backstory. It actually does slightly help cover that hole and the side of the tank. I really wish maybe they had put a panel there to cover it up, or maybe another set of tank treads. That's another critique I'd say. It does look a little bit weird that there's only tank treads in the back of the tank and none in the front. I think that looked pretty cool if they put some there. I think the reason why they didn't do that is because it would kind of mess up the whole storage for the sword, but that is just my guess. But I think that would look pretty cool because these are actually the legs, and if they put them there, that'd be pretty cool to have some tank treads on the side of the legs. That would sound pretty cool in my opinion. Look pretty cool in my opinion. Overall, it's just an okay tank, not the best. I wouldn't say it's bad, but I wouldn't say it's like great or amazing. I can easily pass on a few problems here and there for the tank, because I would say probably the robot mode is flawless. It's such a good robot mode in my opinion. Probably one of my favorite deluxes of Legacy so far. Probably in the top 3 of deluxes from Legacy, or maybe the first or my favorite of the deluxes. I'm not entirely sure at this moment, but it's a really good robot mode. Of course, transformation-wise, I would say it's pretty simplistic. It can be a little bit fiddly sometimes, but I'd say after 2 times of using the instructions, you'll get it down pretty good. Getting down to the remote, of course, articulation, pretty average for a Deluxe. Unfortunately, there is no wrist rotation, but you can actually angle the hands, which is really due to transformation, but you can put them in some really cool poses using the flip in hand for transformations. So you can have him angling his sword in battle, which is pretty cool, but everything else pretty average. Good rotation in the legs. It's slightly limited in the outward movement. Of course, you can do a full kick forward and back, but the outward movement is slightly limited because he actually does have little pads on the side of his legs, so you cannot fully kick him out because it'll start bumping into things, and of course it could break stuff. So do be aware of that when you get this figure, or if you already have it. Good articulation in the arms, head always looks, always good articulation, but detail-wise, I think they definitely shine. The head sculpt they did such an amazing job with. Love all the bone design, the really cool teeth and tusks, the really menacing eyes. I think they did such an amazing job with that. I do have one complaint I would say is really with the backpack. So for some reason, it's removable. That's not really what bothers me. What bothers me is for some reason, of course, the backpack is this turret section in the tank, so it does make sense it can move. But I really would have liked if you would be able to lock it into place for the robot mode. As I mentioned before, whenever you're posing this figure around, it can be kind of annoying when the tank pieces on the back just keep moving and back and forth, and you have to reposition it. So that would have been nice if you could have locked into place, and that actually would have been really good, so you can have an option. You can have it not locked in place or locked in place. Also, a really nice option is you can angle the tail however you wish. Again, you can remove the whole backpack if you want to. I'm not really sure why it's an option. I don't know, doesn't bother me. I don't really care if it's parts forming or not, and you can remove it like I did for the transformation. If you want that removed, just to make it a little bit easier, you can just have some more clearance, or you can keep it on. Also, the blasters, of course, you can store on the back or have in his hands. Really the only backpack permanent piece is the tail. Those are really just attached to the backpack himself, the guns. As for the other accessories, of course, the blasters and the 2 swords. The 2 swords are more kind of a pliable rubber material, but they're actually pretty solid. I was really worried that they were going to be thin, kind of rubbery, flappy plastic that was just kind of wave everywhere and like weak swords, but they're actually pretty solid. They're heavy, thick rubber. I think there is probably a mixture of rubber and plastic in this sword, which is cool. I also really do like the cool hilt they put, or a little area where the handle is. That actually looks super cool, and the gunmetal gray and white mixture on the sword actually looks super cool. So overall, I think this is an amazing Deluxe. I did buy it a little bit early. I got it on eBay for actually a pretty good deal. I think I paid $32 for it, and honestly, that's overpriced. The average price for Deluxe is about $25, $26, and honestly, $32 is absolutely worth it for this figure. I think it's probably one of my favorite Deluxes in Legacy. I'm not sure about my favorite, but he's probably in my top 5 favorite Deluxes. It's a really good figure. Tank mode is just so-so, but the robot mode is really where it shines. The sculpt work of the head sculpt, it comes with 4 accessories. You do have to be aware, yes, there are 2 of the same, 2 swords and 2 guns that are identical, but still, some Deluxes only come with 1. Some leaders come with none. Like, for example, Kingdom Beast Wars Megatron comes with 0 accessories. So you do have to be aware, 4 accessories is pretty good. Yes, there is some rubber pieces here and there, but that really doesn't bother me at all. Again, doesn't bother me. Some people might be bothered by it. Again, I do have to mention some parts of the head, like the horns and the spikes on the shoulders, they are rubber, but that's probably really just due to safety in case kids, you know, they maybe fall in it or drop it. It could poke them. So really, I would say it's just safety. Why the swords are rubber, I'm not really sure, because they have made swords before that are not rubber. For example, Shatterglass Starscream, he's actually right here, right now. I'm looking at him for a good example. His swords were actually clear plastic, not rubber at all, so I'm not entirely sure why they made them rubber. I think it is a mixture. I think the whole gunmetal gray part is plastic, but the sword section is rubber. That's my guess. Again, doesn't bother me, just kind of weird that they did it. Overall, a very solid release that I do highly recommend. Quite a bit more content coming soon, and of course, let me know what you think of this figure in the comment section down below. Hope you enjoyed this review, and I'll see you.